Notes on the Old Testament according to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Deuteronomy chapter 1. The sacred history will guide us towards the actions to acquire our inheritance. Deuteronomy 2. The LDS believe that the pre-Jewish Israelites crossed the Red Sea rather than the Reed Sea, Yam Suf, and hung out for days in Western Arabia. But that and the south of Israel was banned for them. Well, specifically the generation that started the journey. Deuteronomy 3. When some are not ready, they may be the ones to prepare the generation that will be ready. Deuteronomy 4. Divine law is superior to anything humanity can invent, but people need to carefully adhere to it and stay from the forms against divinity. Deuteronomy 5. Covenants can transcend generations, and we should remember what the ancestors went through. Deuteronomy 6. One should manifest one's pacts in one's land, property, and teachings, but don't neglect the meanings. Deuteronomy 7. Divine love is for ability to keep the spiritual precepts. So do not preserve the objects of the violations of the oaths. Deuteronomy 8. Power ultimately comes from divinity, but abilities may be taken away due to failure in the spiritual and physical threats, as in there's threats on your physical and spiritual well-being and you're not making the right choices and it gets taken away. Deuteronomy 9. Prophets mediate between the will of the people and the plan of a heavenly kingdom. Deuteronomy 10. Divinity is beyond need, but we need to convey the inflexible and the formable with feelings and emotions. Deuteronomy 11. Love starts on agreeable terms, flourishes with the variety of goodly things, and cements itself in the use of boundaries. Deuteronomy 12. There is the Judeo-Christian belief that they should destroy the remnants of any other faith when they conquer. And as I've pointed out with chapter and verse in some videos, they believed that they were allowed to conquer people who had different faiths just because they had different faiths, but they are to make their offerings distinct before giving over portions of their property. Deuteronomy 13. People may misuse their being spiritually gifted, but one doesn't have to follow in the direction they say their experience is directing. Judeo-Christian belief is to kill the prophets and dreamers who try to encourage different opinions of worship. Now, again, I'm not saying it's right or recommending for people to do it, but, that's just what the Bible is teaching here. Deuteronomy 14. Do not do self-harm or take on undignified appearances even in eating. Deuteronomy 15. Judeo-Christian law calls for justice towards family, friends, and one's country, but foreigners can be overcharged and turned into lifelong slaves. Sacrifices are for everyone to eat once the blood is drained. Deuteronomy 16. During Passover, abstain from leavening for a week, and the only meat shall be from sacrifices carried out in a chosen place. After 7 weeks, observe Pentecost for a week with grain and fruit drink offerings. Don't accept bribes. Deuteronomy 17. Sacrifices are to be of what is not defective, and Judeo-Christian law calls to execute those who worship the celestial bodies or others as gods beside God. Deuteronomy 18. Don't fear the power of those who claim to be prophets, but don't set the example they recommend. Don't engage in harmful initiation rites, nor perform the disbelieving magic. Deuteronomy 19. Witness testimony has to be overwhelming, and false witnesses are to be punished like what they hoped would happen. Deuteronomy 20. Religious discourse should precede battle, but those who have quick religious duties to do for their homes may delay. So they do what they got to do and come back. Everybody else should haste to show up. Deuteronomy 21, Jews and Christians are to wash their hands over a beheaded cow that didn't work if an unsolved murder is discovered. One's feeling about one's spouse, and anybody else really, should have no bearance upon inheritance. Judeo-Christian law is towards murdering one's disobedient children. Deuteronomy 22, don't let loss of property happen to another, but prevent calamity and return the lost. The penalty for rape of someone not even betrothed is forced marriage of the victim, and the rapist is not allowed divorce. Yeah, that's really what they teach. Married or engaged victims get justice in the execution of the perpetrators, but they will be executed if it is judged they didn't yell or scream loud enough. Saying no or resisting should be enough. Thank you very much. Deuteronomy 23, those with sexual injuries are not allowed in holy places. Those with involuntary sexual emission are banished to the wilderness for the day. Usury is banned upon those you know. You don't charge it to those you know. Pay your real debts and carry out your lawful oaths. Don't bring tools planning to take from the fields of another. Deuteronomy 24, allow divorce when marriage is unfavorable. Marriage should be used to prevent war. Don't use your position of power over others towards oppression. Quarantine to prevent the spread of diseases, if rightly advised so. Deuteronomy 25, courts are to settle disputes and penalties vary. Animals should be allowed to snack as they work. Be careful of just measure. Judeo-Christian law for a woman who grabs the privates of an enemy to defend family is to cut off her hand. Now, when it comes to physically defending whatever's necessary, right? I mean, probably for the sake of making this video, check the laws in your area before you might get in a situation. But Deuteronomy 26, Judeo-Christian law is to set aside offerings first, to not eat during mourning, or that left as offerings for the dead, and to force others to observe biblical holidays. Deuteronomy 27, every prescribed curse is to be affirmed by the people. Deuteronomy 28, material and spiritual blessing is by living with spiritual consciousness, but a curse is in secularism and false worship. Deuteronomy 29, the ways of the people are to be beyond what land they are in, because of some of the ideology and theology is like unpleasantness taking root. Deuteronomy 30, humanity needs to choose what path they will follow, but do faith sharing, oppose oppression, and otherwise prove your love of God. And isn't it oppression to be charging interest rates and stuff like this just because it's people you don't know? Deuteronomy 31, revelation shall be sung, and it shall be known to all what its ordinances are. Deuteronomy 32, religion is not just for humans, but some serve desires, the strange, and devils. Deuteronomy 33, confirm your teachings before your death and acknowledge how different people will bring out different qualities. Deuteronomy 34, the Israelites never knew a prophet quite like Moses, but he was not to live to see Palestine be turned into a kingdom for God. Now, I say Palestine to denote where the land is, because it wasn't ancient Israel at that time. And Canaan and Palestine were not contemporary names that people called themselves. From 135 to 1948, there was a historical Palestine.